Well, one thing I was going to ask.
Okay.
This is an interview at the Chanticleer Motel, Geneva, New York, 25th of August 2005, approximately 4:30 p.m. Interviewers are Wayne Clark and Mike Russert. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, place of birth, please?
Ernest L. Bishop, Bradford, Pennsylvania, 7/12/44.
Okay. What was your educational background prior to entering service?
High school.
Okay.
That was about it.
Did you enlist or were you drafted?
I enlisted.
Why did you decide to enlist?
I decided to enlist because at that point in time, this would have been, I graduated in high school in 1962, you would go to a place, apply for a job, and they would ask you if you'd been in the service, and I said no, and they says, okay, we'll take your application, but we're going to throw it in the garbage. And it became very obvious it was a dead-end street as far as a decent job goes. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I'll just get this out of the way because virtually everybody I know eventually ended up whether they enlisted or was drafted. So.
Mm-hmm. Why did you select the Army?
I grew up always interested in guns. They promised me to go to small arms repair school, and that was why I picked the Army.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Where did you go for basic?
Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Could you tell us about your basic there? Anything that stands out more than other?
I don't know that anything stands out especially. Hot, I can remember that going in August. Most of the drill instructors at that time were Korean War veterans. I thought a pretty competent bunch of people. I got to know quite a few people. I know I met two fellows that was in my platoon that were from can't think of the town right now by Fort Jackson, but they were from there. They were National Guard that were doing their 6 months with them. And I went home with them a couple of weekends and enjoyed that. Other than that, it wasn't too bad. Physically, I know a lot of people talk about it. I had worked, just spent a year working in the oil field. I was in pretty good shape. That part didn't particularly bother me.
How about being away from home?
No, I've always been sort of a independent thing that didn't bother me. One of the things I truly enjoyed is, like I said before, I was interested in guns, and I used to do a lot of shooting, and I enjoyed that part of it. I enjoyed the range and qualification and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. How long were you there?
I think 8 weeks, if I remember right. I think so. That's what basic was at the time.
Right. And where did you go from there?
From there, I went to Aberdeen Proving Grounds to that was the Ordnance Center at the time. I went to small arms school there. Went by bosses, I remember. That was a little disappointing. It was very routine, I guess. I didn't really learn a lot, to be honest with you. I knew quite a bit about guns and things, and this was pretty much tear them apart, put them together type of thing. The one thing I enjoyed, I know the first week or so, we went to a basic tool class, and you got to do hands-on. I know we made an anvil by hand, a little brass anvil, file it out and everything. To this day, I have that. That part I enjoyed. But the rest, it was boring, to be completely honest with you. But, I obviously learned some things.
Now, you said in the things you wrote that you were there when Kennedy was assassinated.
Oh, yeah, I was. I was in school. I can remember breaking into our class and telling us that the president had been assassinated. And I can remember that they locked the post down. We went on full alert. And it seemed so ironic. We had no gear there. I mean, we went to school, but I don't know why we were on alert and what we were going to do, but they did it. And we were that way for 2 or 3 days, and I can remember being in the orderly room there, or rec area, whatever we had, when Ruby got killed. I can remember sitting there with a bunch of people and seeing that. Other than that, obviously that was a big thing. And I remember we went down to Arlington before he was moved to a permanent tomb. He was there and saw the flame and all of that stuff. And, this is just within a week or two. I don't remember exactly when after he was taken there. But that was was the big event while we were there, yeah.
Mhm.
I'm glad you brought that up today.
How long were you at Aberdeen?
Boy, I think it was 12 weeks, maybe, something like that. I don't remember exactly now. I know I went home for Christmas leave while I was there. I didn't get a leave after basic, but I did go home Christmas leave, and I went back to school. Seemingly had maybe a couple of weeks left or something like that before we left there and shipped out to our units.
How do you think it prepared you for
what I did?
For what you did?
I would say pretty well. Again, when I got to a unit and did what I did, you know, I knew what I was doing. Again, you got to bear in mind I was a person that was interested in what I was doing.
Right.
And a lot of people, especially the draftees, weren't particularly interested. So I think I come out maybe as a little bit of soldier, a little better at what I did than them, but I don't think I really was. I think it's just because maybe I had a little better attitude or a little better aptitude for that than some of those did. But yeah, I think they did a good job. I don't know what else they could really do.
What was your assignment when you left there?
Well, when I left there, I went to 25th Infantry Division in Hawaii, Schofield Barracks. I went from Aberdeen. We flew to Los Angeles, to San Francisco, and I was there at the Oakland Army Terminal for a couple of weeks, which was just a miserable place to be. If anybody was there, everybody was transient. The food was bad. Everything was bad there. And then I went by ship to Hawaii. And when I got there, they didn't have a slot in the Ordnance Battalion for me. So I was no, actually, I went to my Ordnance Battalion. They didn't have a job for me, so I was attached to a supply outfit and worked on a big warehouse type thing for, I would say, probably a month or so. And as I said in my interview, or the thing I wrote, one of the interesting things happened there. I was actually calling as a witness to a court martial. One of the guys in this warehouse had stolen some grenades and sold them downtown. And I didn't know anything about it. They just called us, everybody that worked there, did you know anything, such and such, do this? No, I didn't. You were dismissed, but it was kind of interesting.
But you said you never found out the...
I never found, that was always a fascinating thing with me with the service, that things like that would happen. You never ever found out the outcome. Just was like everybody disappeared and whatever happened, happened, but I have no idea what happened.
Okay. How long were you in Hawaii?
I got there, I think, February of '64, January, February, something like that. Basically 2 years. I was TDY from there a couple of times. I went to, was in Thailand for I think 4 months. One-on-one training exercise to Formosa.
Now, what did you do on those, on the training exercise?
Just went with an infantry outfit and supported them. Just, you know, not much really. Sat around on an ordnance van and waited for something to break. And, you know, well, not that was Formosa. Thailand, I went over there as an inspector. One of the things we did, in addition to repair, we were an inspection team. The Army at that time had 2 inspection teams, a CMMI and I can't remember the other one. And one of them was civilian inspectors, one was military. We were the military, and you go and inspect the equipment. We went over there to inspect things that they were giving to the Thai government, old surplus World War II stuff, which at that point in time wasn't that old. We inspected it, and then we stayed there. We were qualified, so we repaired a lot of it over time. And Formosa, that was just a straight training exercises.
Did you get much time off in either of those?
We got to do some stuff there, you know, the normal GI stuff that everybody does. And probably the less said the better, but that type of thing. Also, the one thing I really enjoyed in Hawaii is I like to hunt, and of course we were on Oahu, which is the island where most of the things are going on, but the Army had a big training area on the island of Hawaii itself, the Big Island. And I volunteered to go there anytime I could because I could hunt while I was there. And I got to know, there was a guy there, I was always very envious of him. He had the only person I've ever known of his military MOS. He was a game warden. He was a post game warden. He was an E6. He had a couple of bird dogs and a shotgun, and he hunted. I don't know how he got the job, but I would have traded places with him. But I liked it over there. I hunted quite a bit, and I don't know, I probably made 3 or 4, maybe more than that, times I went over. We would go over, I was in a headquarters, when I first went to Hawaii, I was in a B company, which we were attached to a particular brigade. Then I got transferred to a headquarters company, and you were attached to the division as a whole, and you would go out with any unit went out, and they would break up into smaller groups, so I got to go out quite a bit that way. You never know who, when they were sending a group over to train, they would ask for people, and like I say, I'd volunteer, and most of the guys didn't like it over there. You were at a high elevation, you didn't get to town, and everything, and that didn't bother me. I kind of liked that part of it.
Now, when you went out, your job was to repair weapons.
Yeah.
What did you carry with you to do this?
We had an ordnance van. I had an ordnance van that was basically a hardback deuce and a half. Instead of canvas, it was the same size as that. We had carried quite a few spare parts in it. For, like I say, I was small arms. We had machine gun parts, rifle parts, bayonet parts. We worked on bayonets, handguns, mortar up through, I think, 4 deuce mortars we worked on. Bigger than that was artillery, but we had a basic parts van. We had workbenches in there, drill press, grinders, that type of thing, toolboxes. And we would set up, and they would usually bring stuff to us that needed repair. Also, like, I got to diversify a lot of, like I say, I was in small arms, but I was in what we call the armament platoon, and we did weapons, and then they had mechanical groups that worked on, and then we had F&E, fuel and electrical stuff. And if those guys got busy and we didn't, we would help them. You'd work on trucks and that type of thing. The more mundane things that they had to do, we'd help them with that. It was a good environment. It was a good work environment.
Now, at that time, I guess maybe you can talk about the M14, M16, and then some of the problems with them.
I was issued the M14, so I took basic training with it. To this day, I think it's a better weapon than the M16. I saw some M16s. We never really had any. In fact, after I got to Vietnam, as I was leaving, of course I was in an ordnance group, so we were the last to get issued stuff. We were just starting to get the M16. We still had M14. We were getting the M16s in for repair. Did not have much training on it at all. Some, but not much. And again, but basically you were just a parts changer. So if you could tear it apart, if the part was broke, you substituted a new part. I personally like the M14 better.
Why?
I dislike anything with a lot of plastic on it. And at that time, and if you look back at the history of the M16s, they had a lot of trouble with them.
Yeah, early on. Yeah.
Early with dirt and things, and I think that was all cleaned up later on, but it did.
Now, did you have any M14 problems like that with a lot of dirt or?
No, they were pretty good. The biggest problem I can remember in M14s, they had a real thin section back of the receiver and the stock. Some of them would crack there, and they would crack up on underneath on the forend. They would crack, and we repaired those. I can't think of anything. One of the biggest headaches we had at that point in time in Hawaii was we were training shotgunners for Vietnam. They were sending them over there at that time. This would be 64, 65 time frame. And of course they had the door-mounted M60 machine guns. They had an awful lot of problems with them, with the bolts cracking and things. And we couldn't keep enough of those parts in to keep those going. Sometimes we had to actually shut choppers on from training on that because we didn't have enough guns functioning. I don't know, I suspect now, I've got a lot better background now than I had then. It's probably a heat treat problem with locking lugs and things to pull. I don't really know that, but I suspect that's what it was. But, we did get to see while we were there, and I don't remember how we got them, but a lot of the stuff that the VC were using, some old Russian stuff, some homemade stuff, were no more than a glorified zip gun. Brought those in.
Have you seen French weapons coming in too?
I don't remember French so much. It's just some AK-47s, some of the older Russian stuff, the SKS stuff. No, I don't recall much of the French stuff, but basically that stuff was just brought in and we got to look at it, and I think it probably eventually ended up in a museum there in Hawaii at probably the 25th Division museum. I would guess that's where that stuff ended up, I would think. But, and I can remember, and I just thinking at the time, if this is what these people were fighting with, this is just silly, it's just no big deal. And obviously we all found out a lot different later on. But Hawaii was okay. I enjoyed TDY out of there to places while I was there. I'm not a beach person, that type of thing. But obviously you went to the beach while you were there and that type of thing. But, met a few people. I got to work some with some civilians there. Like I say, I was on the Army inspection team, and I remember the civilian equivalent to that did inspection. Their small arms guy had a heart attack, and I traveled around with them quite a bit on the island, some of the Nike sites and some of that stuff, and go in and inspect the weapons and stuff like that.
Those weren't small arms.
Well, I didn't inspect that. I inspected the small arms over there. They had small arms there. Yeah, I agree.
When did you end up going to Vietnam?
I went to Vietnam, and I think I left Hawaii in about February or March of '66. We had gone over, people went over in '65, late '65, the 1st Brigade went over, and I went over then, and again, I've had some Vietnam vets that just almost call me a liar on this one. I went to Vietnam by boat. Went on a troop ship, and we landed, and I think it was Cam Bay, but I don't remember. We anchored offshore, went down over the side of the nets. The whole 9 yards is like you're storming a beach. Got on the little boats, went on the beach. Then they put us on an airplane, and we flew the rest of the way. So that was very unusual. Like I say, I think it was Cam Bay, but I'm not sure. I just don't remember. But that was pretty interesting, because we did an awful lot of amphibious training while I was in Hawaii. And then, but anyway, we flew into Tonsanut, and we were at the time they were in the process of building up the big Cu-Chi base camp. And basically what I did, I won't say most of the time, but probably the first 3 months or so I was there, we shuttled trucks from the docks at Saigon to Tonsanut and then on to Cu-Chi. In convoys, and you would help unload them at the docks, basically back to Tonsanut. You might spend a night or so there. Then you would form up a convoy and take it to Cu-Chi, catch a chopper, go back and do the same thing again. You might make, I would say, an average of probably 1 trip a day. I think it was around 60 miles. Sometimes you get in 2, but then sometimes you'd skip days. They'd blow up bridges at night, that type of thing, where you couldn't get through. And I paired up with another guy, a good friend of mine, that I've kept in touch with over the years from Colorado. And we basically kind of the team went, one drove, the other one rode shotgun. And you'd be in some major convoys.
Were you ever under attack in any of them?
Yeah, once in a while. Mostly it was a mortar thing from a distance, or rockets come in, and I can remember a couple of times some vehicles getting hit. I don't remember anything even really that close to us. It seemed like it was ahead or behind. You know, sometimes you'd have, like, if you got a bridge blown up or something, you'd have to turn around and go back, and they'd split the convoy up. But they kept a patrol pretty good during the day. You know, it was a typical thing. You know, we owned the day and VC owned the night there. But that's what I did a lot when I was here at first. Then we eventually got set up with our own, got everything there. We worked out of our ordnance vans there. When in Hawaii, we worked out of our vans when we went into the field. But in Vietnam, we never had a shop when we worked out of our vans all the time. We didn't get a lot of stuff, and most of the stuff, small arms there that needed repair was junk. So we didn't do a lot. I did more working on helping other. By then, I was a platoon sergeant or acting platoon sergeant. It was an E5, kind of in an E6 slot type thing. So I got to go out. You know, we'd go out to fire bases and that stuff and work on some artillery pieces, that type of thing. I would help on that. I was also cross-trained. This was something I missed when I was in Hawaii. I was cross-trained in turret repair on tanks because they wanted to promote me E4 at the time, and they didn't have a slot in small arms, so they cross-trained me in turret repair so I could jump into. They had a slot, an E4 slot for turret repairman, so I actually jumped to that. I never did work at all that much. I did somewhere.
They have a lot of problems with the turrets turning because of the
Yeah, you know,
weather and
yeah, some of that
humidity
we used to do, and we used to do quite a bit of just routine maintenance on them. One of the things they had problems with the barrels corroding and things. You could actually the barrels on a tank come off fairly easily. You know, we would take them off and clean them up and relube and stuff and put them back in, and that type of thing. Vietnam, I get well, it's not a feeling I get. I know that's what you like to say. I was there in '66, and most of the people that I know were there later, and it was an entirely different war, I think. Like I said, I was in an ordnance battalion. Probably more of the people were professional soldiers, or I won't say professional, but were enlisted. And I did just not see all the things that I heard about later on with the drugs. And I mean, yeah.
Any racial problems
Nothing.
at that time?
No, there weren't. Boy, I tell you, our group was, God, it had to be 75–80% Caucasian. There weren't too many blacks or, no, I never really saw a problem. I had, no. Like I say, you saw some guys with pot and things, but any hard drugs, I never saw it. I just really didn't. And maybe it was there, and I was.
Do you have much contact with the people there, the local people? At all? Or?
Occasionally, you know, you get into Saigon and that type of thing. You know, you don't speak the language, so it's hard. Didn't overly try. I mean, we would go to. I can remember going into Tan Son Nhut. There are some places just off base and eating in like restaurants and things. And that was quite enjoyable, but not a lot. No, I know on base. There one instance we've been there, and one of the barbers they found out was VC. I think that was fairly common. A lot of the mess hall help, that type of thing.
Were you wearing the jungle fatigues at that point?
Never had jungle fatigues on in my life.
You were wearing the stateside fatigues then?
Yeah, they just, no, I'll take that back. We did have jungle fatigue. I'm mistaken. I thought you meant camel, but we never had any camel. We had a kind of a mix of the regular stateside fatigues and the jungle fatigues. We did get jungle boots, which were a big help. But I got mixed up on that with a camel. We never had any camouflage stuff at all. We did, you know, we were, even though under the base camp thing, we carried a rifle with us 24/7. That type of thing. I don't know if that relaxed later on or not. I know, from what I understand, at Coochie Base Camp where I was at, because I was earlier and it was still being built up. Before it was over, there was a golf course and everything else there. I can't state that for a fact, but I've heard that, some things I read and things.
When you were there, you didn't know anything about the tunnels of Coochie.
Didn't know a thing about the tunnels until I read the book, The Tunnels of Coochie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever read that or not.
Yes.
But didn't know a thing about it. Or we'd get mortar attack, didn't know where it was coming from. Now I know where it was coming from. But I didn't know it at the time. I really didn't. Like I say, I was out of there in late July, early August of '66. I wasn't there that long, really.
Mm-hmm.
But
Any problems with malaria or any type of tropical diseases, jungle rot, etc.?
well, I think everybody had the jungle rot and that type of thing. I did get, if you read my thing, very sick over there. And that was why I came back a little bit earlier when I did.
Now, you want to talk about that?
Sure. I can remember vividly waking up one morning, and I didn't have that long ago, like less than a month, I'm sure. And I had a catch in my ankle. I just felt funny, like a catch and it'll pop. I didn't think much of it. And during the course of the day, it was swelling up and swelling up. And
It's just one ankle?
one ankle, left ankle. And by that night, man, I was taking a shower and I could just barely get back to the barracks. The next morning, and I had an ankle the size of a football. Went on sick call. They didn't know what to do. They medevaced me to Saigon. Got me down there and checked me out. By now, my left knee is ballooning up. Laid there a day, my right ankle starts. And the left, and I was finally diagnosed with what they call writer's syndrome. That's if you know what a syndrome is, it's a bunch of symptoms that come up, but they really never pin it down that much. And I eventually, I couldn't walk. And I left there, flew back to, ended up at Valley Forge Army Hospital.
I read in there, when you flew back, that was a first, right?
Yeah, that was
one
one. Yeah, absolutely. One of the most interesting things. I was on the very first flight that came back from Vietnam, directly back to the States. We flew the polar route. We stopped in I don't remember where, Japan. We refueled in Alaska. Landed at Andrews Air Force Base, and we didn't really know the significance of this, and I'm not even sure that we knew about it until we landed, and there was press there up, it was a major news event. In fact, I was interviewed by Hugh Downs, I can remember that. My interview never made the air, but...
how many were on board?
I'm guessing 30 or so, something like that. Some of them pretty bad. One guy died, I think, on the way over. There's a...
Yes.
I sent an article, that maybe even said how many was on it.
I don't remember from reading it.
I don't remember myself, that's why I hesitate to say here. I might be way off on what I'm coming. I'm guessing 30. It was a C-141 that they had hooked up with. It had doctors.
26.
26? Okay, I wasn't far off on the 30 then. But there were some guys who was pretty bad. We landed at Andrews, spent the night there at Andrews Air Force Base, or maybe one night. I wasn't ambulatory at all. They took me off on a litter. I'm not sure if I got in a wheelchair. I had to, because I remember going to the mess hall. This would have been like in August, and I can remember fresh tomatoes were just probably the greatest meal I ever had in my life was those fresh tomatoes. I can remember that, how the taste of those. I still love them to this day. They were great. And ice cream. I had a lot of ice cream there. And I can remember there was two of us they put on in a room by ourselves or on another floor or something. I can't remember exactly the situation. But I remember there was a Catholic priest come up, and I'm not Catholic, but just a great guy. And he spent like a whole evening with us. And he just talked to us, that was great talking to him. I can remember that. I can remember what the guy looked like, but I can't remember his name. like I say, I can't remember if it was the next day or the next day. Then I flew to Fort Dix on a small plane. In fact, I was on a litter, and I can remember laying in the aisle. I didn't even sit up in a seat. It was one of the few times in my life I'm not particularly afraid of flying, and I knew that plane was going to crash. And I don't know if it was laying on the floor, not being able to see or what. It was horrible. I can remember when I landed, I really remember
Roll off
that.
the stretcher and kiss the ground?
Yeah, something like that. And then we went by bus to Valley Forge. We got there, and I can remember we got to call home. And that was the first time I had talked to my parents in almost 3 years, because you didn't call back then. I wrote a lot. And they came down maybe the next weekend. My entire family, my mom and dad, my brother and sister, come down to see me. I can remember my brother was a corpsman in Korea. So, he knew what he was getting into. So he went up first, and my parents and things come up. And if I can say something here about that, this is a very interesting thing. My brother was a corpsman in Korea, was on the hospital ship to Haven, and in I'm not sure the year, went up the Saigon River and got a bunch of the French out of there to bring them back, and they actually brought them back to France. I thought that was interesting. We were both in Vietnam at some point in time, at like 10, 12 years apart. That's kind of a sideline to this whole thing, but that was always very interesting to me. But anyway, my parents come, and I can remember Valley Forge was a great place. They had housing there where they stayed. I don't know, they spent a night or two, I don't remember now. And then went back, and I got there. I basically spent about 4.5 months there. I was probably there for 2 months maybe before I could leave. And I rode the train. I did not. I'm lying. My sister and my mother come down and picked me up the first time, and went back home. I grew up about probably 300 miles from here, really opposite ends of the state from Valley Forge, which is down by Philadelphia. And I went home with them, and I was home, I think, the first time for about a month. And I can remember getting up the back of the steps. My mom and dad had back steps going on. I had been in closed porch, and I can remember I was on crutches, but putting the crutches in front of them. I'm not using those again, and I didn't. And I was there a month, and the day that I came back to town, I went hunting. I hobbled up on a hill behind the house. And then I went back. I remember a good friend of mine I was from high school with took me back down. And then by then I was getting around pretty good then. It was
Now, what were they doing for you?
therapy. Basically, it was about it.
No medication? Or
Not
just,
really. It was this whole thing, and what caused all this massive swelling and stuff was arthritis. And I'm 22 years old, and was just eating up with this stuff. And aspirin, basically, back then was about all they were giving you for it. There's been some things later on that helped with it. And,
now, has it ever reoccurred?
yeah, that was have been 66. I got married in 1971, and I'd been married about 3 months, and I felt this stuff coming on again. And I spent about better part of a month or two laid up with it that time. And I've been 71, and then I had another episode with it in 84 or 5, but each time it was less and less. I still have problems with it. I'm having problems with the knee right now. But I have problems with arthritis. But nothing that I can't overcome. It's not that bad really. I do anything I want to do. And anyway, then where were we at? I was hanging around there with the therapy and this, and by then I bought a car, and I was going home just about every weekend. I get a 3-day pass every weekend. I'm just biding my time until I got discharged.
How would you rate your care while you were there?
I thought it was excellent. I really did. I can't say enough about Valley Forge. There's a guy I work with, so one of the cab units was there about a year after me, and we oftentimes at lunch we'll talk about it, And we both thought it was but it was a good facility. I have no complaints. He was there, like I say, after I was, and I know when I was there, the first floor was all that was used. The second floor wasn't. But when he was there, the whole place was filled up. But, he was a lot more troops from Vietnam and that type of thing. But yeah, I'm talking about it. I have no complaints whatsoever about that. I have really no complaints about the service much at all. It was a positive experience for me. Did a lot of growing up. Got some direction to my life and that type of thing.
Something you forgot to mention, you got to kiss Julie Andrews?
Oh, yeah. Did forget that. Yeah. In fact, I saw her last night in the movie. I always think about that. Yeah, when I was in Hawaii, the movie Hawaii, if any of you have seen it, was being filmed there. I don't know who arranged. She come out and did a tour of the base and everything, and we were out on firing ranges with our ordnance vans, and they actually come up in a one, and she gave me a peck on the cheek.
How'd she pick you?
I don't know. I probably wasn't the only one. I don't know. She's always been my favorite movie actress, so I can say that much. Yeah. I'd forgotten about that. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm a little nervous here.
That's okay. Now you were discharged then from Valley Forge, or?
Right. I was supposed to have gotten out in August, and I was on a medical hold until December, so I was held over there 3 months or whatever it was when I got out.
Did you happen to see any USO shows while you were over there?
You got to kiss Julie Andrews.
Yeah. We saw, not a Bob Hope one. I did see one so far away, I don't remember who it was. I can't remember who it was. I've got pictures of it too, but I don't remember who it was.
Was it Martha Ray?
Wasn't Marcia Ray. I wanted to say it was Ann Margaret, but that may be not true. I don't know. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I can remember one of the things that made a big impression on me, and I'm very active in the Legion now, and one of the reasons is when we got back to Valley Forge, Legion was great down there, and they used to come in and have dances and just bring food in and stuff, and because I can remember talking, especially I don't remember the post. It was a little post from quite a ways away, and they had so many of their members were in World War II that this was their way of giving back. Yeah, they did a great job there.
Did you ever use the GI Bill?
Yes. I got home, and I attended the University of Pittsburgh for a while, and I eventually went to a place in Pittsburgh called the Triangle School of Drafting, and I have an associate's degree in mechanical drafting. And I've pretty much stayed in that field my whole life. And, did that, and I use it for some other classes and stuff beyond that, but that's the degree I have.
And obviously you were active in veterans groups.
I'm very active in the Legion. I belong to the VFW. I'm not active in it. I'm still active in the Legion. I've been our post adjutant for a long time. I've been on the board of directors for 15 years. I'm a past county commander of the American Legion, Ontario County. I've been on the Charities Committee. I'm in our color guard. That's the thing I do for fun. The other stuff is, I like to say, I do it for the good of the Legion. But I'll be the first one. I do that one for fun. It's a lot of fun.
I think you alluded to one person have you been in contact with anyone that served with?
Dwight Lessenden's his name. He's the only one I've maintained contact with over the years. He's in Colorado, a little place called Eads, Colorado. Works for the state. I haven't talked to him in a while. I think he's maybe about ready to retire. But we've kept in touch over the years. I had another good friend in Ohio, Niles, Ohio. He was in Vietnam and got discharged from there. Came to see me probably a year or so after I got home, maybe a year and a half. And then probably 15 years later, I was traveling through Ohio with my family. I was living in Tennessee at the time. You know, we'd driven all night, stopped for breakfast. So this is where this friend of mine's from, Mike Rushak. Looked his name up in a phone book. I'll call him. Call him. Where you at? Told him I'll be there in 5 minutes. He lived around the corner. So he came and we had a good visit. My wife thought it was too long. She was wanting to go. But that was nice seeing him. I got another real good friend I was in high school with. He was in Hawaii. I was in Hawaii with him, and he was there before me, and we ended up going to Vietnam on the same ship together. And kept in touch over there. And then he was due to be discharged like a week or two before me, and at that time everyone got discharged in California. He was going to wait. We were going to buy a car and drive cross country coming back. I got sick, and that never happened. And I kept in touch with him, very close touch with him for many, many years, but he's probably about 10 years ago moved to California, so we email one another now, and I haven't seen him probably about 10 years. Like I said, we kind of grew up together in our high school together, good friends in high school, and maintained that friendship over the years. Other than that, I really haven't been in contact with anybody. I remember the 25th Division Association, but I've never attended a reunion.
Next question, okay.
No, I never have.
Okay.
I know some people. I know a friend of mine who was 82nd Airborne. I think he's going to 4 this year. But I just never really had the burning desire to do it. Maybe someday.
Ever have the desire to return to Vietnam?
Maybe. Yeah. I probably would at some point in time if I had the chance. I know a guy I know very well. I used to be the Wayne County Service Officer, Colonel Tom Ferguson. He got back about 3 years ago. He took his son and went over. I talked to him quite a bit. He thoroughly enjoyed it. He went back to, I guess, at Cuchina, the tunnels there. There's quite a tourist thing and things there where they go through it. And I think he had some pictures of that. I don't know that I ever will, but if my wife was interested in it, I might. To go alone, no, I don't think so.
Do you ever read much or watch any movies on Vietnam?
I read quite a bit. The movies I've tried to watch, I can't. They don't bother me. They're BS from what I've seen. You know, I don't care for them.
Now, I know you were out when the big anti-war movement happened.
Yeah.
How did you feel about it, being a veteran and being back?
That was a tough time. I did probably more drinking then than I should have. I don't think it ever really got that out of hand, but I did my fair share. And it was tough. I was going to school at the time. I can remember freshman year English composition. You know, what do I know? Just got out of service, been to war, write about this. They laughed at me. I was probably 23 at the time. These kids are 18. They laughed at me. And I kind of, for the next, virtually 20 years, sort of crawled in a shell. And I never admitted I was in Vietnam or in the service or anything else. I just didn't do it. You know, if it come up, I didn't hide the fact, but I certainly didn't volunteer it. Let's put it that way. And I think that was the case with a lot of people. You know, I like to think of myself as probably more of an average person that was in the service. You know, I think so much of the movies with the baby killers, everybody was there was a drug addict and this type of thing is, and I don't think that's the case. I mean, those things happen, but I think it's just overblown so much that, you know. And the other, one of them, this is another one of my pet peeves. Being in a veterans group, meeting a lot of veterans, 90% of the guys I know in Vietnam were either tunnel rats, helicopter pilots, snipers. Nobody was a clerk typist. Nobody drove a truck. You know, it is what it is. I'm sure you guys must see a tremendous amount of that stuff.
How do you think your time in the service changed or had an effect on your life?
Oh, it gave me, like I said before, it gave me some direction. Settled me down a lot. I didn't know what I wanted to do before. Probably was another classic example of the 3 years and something I spent in service, how smart my dad got.
Mhm.
And that, you know, in that time frame. I don't know when I got out, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew a lot of things I didn't want to do. And I've been, I look back at it as, you know, part of my education. I highly recommend, to this day, highly recommend it for anybody. I think it's a tremendous educational thing. I really do. I was a little disappointed my son didn't go on. Talked about it, never did. And it was okay that he didn't.
Mhm.
In some ways, wish that he had. I've always admired like the World War II guys and that, did before, still do. My father-in-law was a World War II vet, very decorated World War II vet, and that type of thing. My family's always been very supportive of the Legion activities and that type of thing. My whole family's tuned into the veterans issues pretty good. My kids are both active in the Legion. My daughter in the Legion Auxiliary, and my son in the Sons of the Legion, that type of thing.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much for the interview.
Well, thank you for putting up with me.